All right. So, hey, ladies, welcome to another episode of the Finding Fynergy Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Lacole Smith. I want to give her a moment to introduce herself, but Lacole is here to just share her story and her journey of empowerment and growth. So, thanks for coming on, Lacole. I want to give you a second to introduce yourself and just tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about you.
Okay, my name, like she said, is Lacole Smith. I am an author. I'm a author mentor. I am a talk show host as well. And basically, I'm an open book. It's nothing that you can go through. It's nothing that you can surprise me with. Anything that comes my way, I'm willing to share. And I just love being in front of women and men even to empower them. So that's kind of my story all wrapped up into one.
I love it. I love it. And I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more about your story. And I know everyone is listening and watching is too. Now, as Lacole said, she's an author, right? And generally, people that write, they have inspiration for their stories. Like, you didn't wake, or maybe you did wake up and say, I want to write a book, but it came from a journey, right? So I want you to kind of tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, what inspired you to write your book?
I was supposed to start writing my book in 2007, and I kept putting it off and kept putting it off. I've been writing stuff since high school. I love to write poems, so I never thought that I would really write a book about my life. So, kept being pushed. I kept being pushed. God kept opening the avenues for me to do it, and I just didn't want to do it because I was like, nobody wants to hear my story. Nobody, is interested in what I have to say. So my journey actually started to shift in 2011, and we'll probably talk more about that as the podcast go on. But I had an accident, and I was literally at the point where I had to just surrender everything to everybody else, and I was very independent. So to ask people to have to help me do, different things. And then from there, I just started writing, and I was like, I'm not gonna publish this. I'm not gonna put it out there because I don't want people to know that I have a weakness. I don't want people to know that that inside I'm not as strong as the person that they see every day. So putting my information out there it was scary. And I just had to go ahead and make that step. And I actually did wake up one day and I was like, I'm going to go ahead and do this because I'm tired of getting whipped for not doing it. So I did wake up one day and I said, I'm going to go ahead and start writing this book.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing. I feel like you said a lot, even in the small blurb that you shared. And so, you know, on here, I like to empower women just in different areas. And I feel like you were kind of talking about your entrepreneurial growth. You kind of referenced your emotional growth. It sounds like, just obviously your accident being one of those examples, there were a lot of things that contributed to your emotional growth. What were some of those things? And even if you want to, kind of tell us a little bit more about your accident in 2011, I think that would be amazing to hear.
Okay, well, in 2011, I was at work. I got a phone call from one of my twins. And they was like, Mom, you need to come and pick up, I want to say it was some donuts from their school. And I was like, well, can they wait till I get off work? And she was like, no, they want everybody to come and pick them up now. So I went and picked up the donuts and I was going to take them back to our house and drop them off because I didn't want them to sit in the automobile, of course. And I didn't want to take them to work because I probably would have ate them. So I was like, okay, let me drop them off at home. But in going to the house, I actually got hit by two 18-wheelers. So one hit me from behind and it kind of pushed me down the road. And the second one hit me almost head on and pushed me back the opposite direction. So when the automobile finally stopped, I was on the opposite side of the road, turned in the opposite direction of where I was going.
Ugh.
And believe it or not, I had no blood on me, nowhere.
Wow.
The only thing that was the only thing that wasn't tore up on the automobile was the driver's door. Uh, Everything else was tore up. And the only blood that you can visibly see, or the only thing that you can visibly see that was wrong with me, was I cut my finger on a piece of glass when I was getting out of the automobile. And
Wow.
my cousin literally had to come and pull up the seatbelt because the seatbelt locked on me and tore into my hip. So it didn't cut me, but it left like a bulge on my hip. So I still have that bulge today where that seatbelt settled into my hip. And it's just the grace of God that I was able to survive it. When the ambulance got there and they checked my pressure and they was checking me and they was looking and it was like, what's hurting? And I'm like, my knee hurt and my back hurt. So I didn't break my knee, but it did pull the muscles around my knee. So that's why my knee was hurting. But I still was able to get up and walk after this accident. They checked my pressure. My pressure was 120 over 70.
Wow.
So they admitted me to the hospital where they did x-rays and they did all kind of tests. I left the hospital the same day. They didn't find anything wrong with me. 3 days later, I had to go back because my back was still absolutely killing me. And that's when they found that my back was fractured. It was a hairline fracture from me being paralyzed. And they say that I'm glad you didn't fall, you didn't sneeze too hard, you didn't pick up on anything. Mind you, I have been picking up on my youngest daughter. She had cerebral palsy and she's deaf. I have been picking up on her during that time and didn't know anything was wrong. I just felt like, oh, it was the impact of the accident. So, God definitely woke me up and let me know, hey, look, I'm here. You know, who walks away from any accident without, some kind of bloodshed unless it's, a divine intervention that comes in and shifts you from that. So I was just glad to be alive. I was glad that my kids still had their mom and it wasn't tragic for my family.
Wow. Wow. So how did you end up, because I know earlier you mentioned that, you had to go from being very independent to now or then dependent on others. And so what did that like rehabilitation process look like from that hairline fracture?
Well, I was on bed rest for 7 months.
Wow.
Um, they didn't want me doing too much moving. They wanted to fuse my back, and I didn't want to have that done. I didn't want them to go into my back and cut me. So that was the stipulations of me not having that back surgery. So I had to wear a brace that kind of guarded my sides and my back, and I had to put it on anytime that I was out of bed. But for the first like 3 weeks, they wanted me to just go to the restroom and get back in the bed. That's all they wanted me to do. They didn't want me doing anything else until they checked my back again.
Wow.
So I had to ask my children, hey, can you bring me my food? Can you, help me put my socks on? Can you help me pull my pants up?
Hmm.
Because they didn't want me bending down to do any of those things, I had to walk around the house with slippers on. So it was a lot. And I thank God for my parents who were, alive at that time. They were there to help out. I actually stayed at their house during my healing process. So it was a lot. It was a lot. My sister and brother, they are twins. They helped so much, and God just had me with a circle of everybody that I needed at that time to get me
Wow.
through that process. My fiance, we literally had just, well, we wasn't fiance, we had just started dating at that
Mhm.
time. Like we were dating, I think 3 months, and he was there every single day. He was there to make sure I was okay. He was bringing food. He was making sure the kids were okay. It was just amazing. God puts people in place for everything that He puts you through, and you just have to be willing to allow that to happen. So that humbled me a lot. It gave me a lot of patience because I didn't have patience at all. So it gave me a lot of patience. It gave me time to think. Just laying there not being able to do too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And replay that accident in my head and just realize how good it is to actually make it through something that dramatic and walk away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a lot to go through in 7 months of bed rest. Gosh, that is a long time, especially when you are used to being independent and now you go to completely being dependent on other people, right? Kind of sounds like you really weren't allowed to move, you know?
Yeah, they really didn't want me to move. So I was like, oh, this was a lot. It was a lot.
I think that would be a hard adjustment for anybody because see, I call myself a busybody. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, if somebody tell me I gotta stay in the bed, I can't get out the bed. So I know that had to wear on like your emotional health. How did you deal with, and what kind of emotional state were you in? How did you get out of that emotional state? Like tell us kind of a little bit more about that.
Well, at first it was kind of like it was fine. For like the first 3 or 4 days, it wasn't bad because I was hurting. So it wasn't too bad. I just want to kind of lay through the pain. But then once you get through that, it's only a certain amount of time that you can be on bed rest without, like you say, your mental health being involved with something, that emotional
Yeah.
um problems that you go through that you have to deal with, that you're just laying there and you're thinking. And um my first result should have been prayer, but it wasn't. At first it was like, I was finding fault in God. I was mad. Like, why would you allow something like this to happen to me? My kids are in sports. My youngest daughter, she's not walking. She needs that kind of assistance. Stuff is going on. Um, Not to mention my job. I'm thinking, hey, am I going to have a job after the end of all of this?
Mm.
You have so much time to just lay there and think and try to figure out what's going to happen, what's going on. And it was just so much emotional stress that I had to endure. And finally, it was like, He got you through this. Lean on Him, pray about it. Pray yourself through it, figure out what you need to do to get through this. And even in that moment, I still went into a state of depression. Um, because it was so emotional and so, hard, just, asking somebody, hey, can you come and put my socks on?
Yep.
Or can you do this? So the emotional part of that was really, really hard. It was really emotional. Just trying to get through it. I had no choice but to lean on prayer. And then I started writing. I kind of started writing how I felt every day. So every day I would write whether I was happy, whether I was sad, whether I was angry, any emotion that I felt, I wrote it down.
Mm.
Um, you know, I would watch TV and then I would kind of try to like compare my life if I was in that situation that they were in on TV. So I kind of tried to, in my mind, play a part of, trying to get me out of this funk, making it fun. And it still was hard. It still was hard. It was
Yeah.
very hard. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I appreciate your vulnerability around that. I when your life changes, and especially in an instant, in ways you never ever saw coming, right? It most definitely takes you places that you never would have pictured yourself to be, right? Not
Mm,
only physically, but emotionally. And, you know, you were feeling depressed, and, you know, you started journaling and you started praying, and you said, man, this can't be what it is, right? I'm not going to allow this to take over. And you said, I have to do something. And
I have to.
that's what I heard from you.
I had to do something, you know. But like I said, I still fell into depression. I still, um, and then I was hiding the fact that I was depressed, because I didn't realize what depression looked like at that time.
Yeah.
So what I was feeling, I didn't even know that it was depression until afterwards. Um, and it really, really got bad in 2016. I lost my mom, so that just made it worse. Um,
Mhm.
and you're already depressed, and you're hiding it, and it wasn't because I was hiding it on purpose. I just didn't know that that's what it was.
Yeah.
I never went to a doctor. I just knew that I didn't feel right. I was sad, but I had to put on a front because that's not what people knew. That's not what they saw. That's
Yeah.
not what they ever, believed. They didn't think that, hey, she can be sad. She can be dealing with something, mentally. I think it was a mental hole that I had put myself in. And I didn't know how to get out of it because I was trying to hide it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, there's a stigma around mental health, and that doesn't help this or anyone else, right? Because, you know, nobody wants to be thought of as crazy, or, anything else that we associate negatively with mental health. So, you know, and especially in the African American community, it's stigmatized, and is difficult, right? And so there's just a lot of barriers that I can see, that made it difficult to deal with that in the moment. So, did you do anything like, did you seek any kind of therapy, or did you have anybody that you talked to about how you felt?
Well, I did. I went to therapy for a little bit, and it probably was maybe 2, 3 weeks. And I was like, hey, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to, talk about it. I don't want to talk about the wreck because every time I talked about it, I cried.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to, share my business with somebody that I didn't know. And, I just kept trying to figure it out on my own, which is the worst thing possible. Get you some help. Make sure that your mental is in place. Make sure that you're talking to somebody. Now, I did have a friend that I talked to, and um, she would encourage me. She would make me laugh. She would act a fool on the phone, and she was like, "Don't make me come out there and have to whoop you and stuff like that." So it was like, uh, it kind of helped me get through it, but it still didn't deny the fact that I was depressed and I was sad, and I had the opportunity to get help and I didn't do it. So I encourage anybody that's going through anything, please go and get some help. Talk to somebody, even if it's if it's a friend,
Yeah.
just talk to somebody, make sure that whatever it is, you just get some help with it because masking it only makes it worse. And it just made it so, so hard. And for years, I'm masking all of this. And then my mom passed in 2016. So I'm dealing with depression from my wreck. That was 5 years earlier. And
Yeah.
then now I'm dealing with this. So I went into a deep, deep, deep depression. And you can basically say I was a functioning alcoholic because I drunk my way through everything. Um, I felt like that was my solution. You know, I still hadn't surrendered myself to the fact that God brought me through this accident. He gonna get me through, the grief of my mom passing. He's gonna get me through all of this. I still didn't have that window. I still didn't know that this is absolutely what can possibly happen if you just have the faith, if you just trust, if you just believe.
Yep.
So I'm still on my own. I'm still trying to make it work myself. And it wasn't working. It just wasn't working. So I went years and years dealing with this, hiding it, masking it, hiding drinking from my children because I didn't want my children to know that I was drinking. Um, Still working a full-time job because at that point I had went back to work. So I'm still doing all of these things and I'm still hurting. I'm still very vulnerable. I'm still very weak. I'm still very angry. Uh, but I hadn't gotten help. So it was a whole lot of things that were kind of like coming together. And in 2019, they actually collided, and I almost broke. So I created me a group called Motivational Talk, and it was only for women. I still have that group actually, and I just started putting my feelings in that group. I started putting my emotions in that group, and I added my friend that I always talk to, and then there was another lady that I was working with. I added her to the group, and it was just the three of us, and we kind of just bounced off of each other. And I started feeling better because I was releasing what I was feeling. I was getting it out. I was telling it to somebody. And I finally was like, Lord, if you get me through this, I would do what you want me to do. And I've been doing it ever since 2019.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I love that. And I love how you kind of walked us through that timeline, starting with your accident in 2011, which I think was, just sounds like the initial trigger. And then it just kept going from there. And as life happens, because we all know that life happens and it doesn't stop. It don't stop for anybody. And it just kept compounding and compounding. And then you finally said, I'm at my breaking point. This just can't go on. Let me do something about it. And that's when you formed your group.
Exactly. That's when I formed that group. And now it has over 200 women in that group that are still in that group and have been there since I started adding people. And I allow them to add their friends and their family. It's not a limit. Like it's a private group, but it's not private. You have the opportunity to invite women in. And I only have it probably because I don't want men in there, because I want it to be a sacred place for women to be able to express themselves.
Absolutely. I 1000% believe in that. Man. Okay. And that's how we turn pain into purpose, right? That's what that sounds like.
Exactly.
Wow. So throughout your kind of timeline of details, you talked about how important God was to your journey. So share with us your spiritual growth and development through, all these things going on in your life.
Well, believe it or not, my dad is a pastor. Well, he was a pastor. My dad passed last year. But I already had the foundation. It was already there. God already had it in place for me. I just wasn't using it. So my spiritual growth was from young. I was rebellious because I was like, we go to church too much. We doing too much. Like sometimes on Sunday we would go to church 2, 3 times a day to different churches, and I was like, I'm over this. When I grow up, I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna go to church when I want to, and that's kind of what I did for a while. And like I said, I had the accident, and I wasn't able to go to church because I was on bed rest. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, I have so many years of when I decided when I was going to go to church, and now I want to go to church because I had started going more. I couldn't. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna show you better than I can tell you. It's kind of
Mhm.
one of those parenting episodes that you have to go through that, I'm a whoop you without saying anything,
Yep.
because sometimes that's the worst whooping that you can get is being
Mhm.
whooped by your parent without them being vocal.
Yeah.
Um, and then I kept moving, and it was like, you're reading the Bible and then you're learning more things about how God brought other people through things. And
Yeah.
it was like, okay, so, you know, in all of these things, you're telling them, if you trust me, I'll get you through it. If you trust me, I'll get you past all this. I still wasn't at the point where I trust him
Yeah.
completely. So I had to make that shift. I had to, like I said, in 2019, I was at my breaking point and I was like, if you get me through this, I'm going to do what you ask. So I started praying more. I started reading my Bible more. I started, posting motivational scriptures and motivational posts, not just for the people in the group, but for myself as well.
Yeah.
And, my journaling even changed, because each morning it was kind of like I put an affirmation: I am beautiful, I am strong, I can
Mhm.
get through, and sometimes it was simple things like, Lord, let me get through this day because it was a bad day. It was my emotions were all over everywhere. So the spiritual growth it just increased and increased and increased. And now that um I do motivational speaking, I kind of can say I made it all the way through there, but it's still room for growth. There's always room for spiritual growth. You can never stop growing spiritually. You can never stop growing emotionally. You can never stop growing mentally because I have my moments, sometimes when I think about the accident or my parents passing, that you fall into that category of sliding back into that direction, but you see it, you understand it, and you can catch yourself.
Yeah.
And I go to, either prayer or I pull out the Bible on my phone, um, because I keep a Bible on my phone. No
Mm.
matter where it's at, I want to have that Bible with me. I want to be able to have the word with me, no matter where I'm at. So I might not have that physical Bible, but I'm gonna always have God wherever I go, and that's exactly what I do.
Man, I love that. I love that. And I feel like you are most definitely not the only person with, this journey, and of how you had to learn to fall back on that faith. It's
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So, and how you where you transform to today with saying, this is an integral part of who I am, right? And I can't be who I am without God, essentially.
Exactly. And that's exactly where I'm at. And that's exactly what I do for everything. I have to know that if I encourage people to do what I did faster than what I did, I'm helping somebody.
Yeah,
And the main thing that I tell them to do is pray. Ask God to give you guidance. You know, ask God to give you the ability to do the things that you need to do and that you want to do.
absolutely. I love that. I love that. So, so far you've kind of talked about, your physical health and just growth with that. We've talked about emotional growth and development. We talked about spiritual growth and development. Um, Tell us a little bit about um your career. Like it sounds like when you went through that accident, it might have had some impact on just your career. And where did you go in your career from the accident?
Actually, when I had the accident, I was an assistant manager at a facility, and I was like, okay, this is cool, being an assistant manager. But when I came back to work, the manager was gone. She had went to another facility, so it was ran by one of the other assistants and myself. So we had a opening for to be the store manager. and both of us were kind of up for that. We were up for that challenge of being the store manager, and I was like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to put, this kind of pressure on myself? But I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna apply for it. And I did. I was able to get that position. So
Wow.
I was store manager for I think 4 years, and my mom took sick. So when my mom took sick, I left my job for the help take care of my mom.
Yeah.
And I was at the point where I was tired. Anyway, of being like every day, it was nonstop. A store manager, you had to put in so many extra hours,
Yeah.
and you lose sight of the family. You lose sight of the that you're not having that kind of time for your family. That you're not having that kind of time for those around you. And then they start to complain. They start to say stuff. They start to, want to be like, well, why are you always at work? Especially my children. Why are you always at work?
Yeah.
But I still would make time to make it to their sporting events, but that was pretty much all. I would go home and I was tired. So I was the store manager there for 4 years, and then I went home. I helped my mom when she passed in 2016. I was like, I need to find something to do to occupy my time because it's just so much going on. It's just so much that I'm dealing with. So I was like, let me go get another job. But I don't want to be a store manager. So I applied at another building. I ended up being an assistant there. And in that time, I was store manager, eventually left. So that kind of bumped me up to store manager again. So I was like, okay, Lord, maybe this is my destiny. I've been, in management for, over 27 years at that point. And I was like, maybe this is what I'm gonna do. Maybe I'm just made to manage stores. And 4 years in, that's my magic number, I guess. I was tired. I didn't like what I did.
Yeah.
I didn't, I wasn't feeling like I was fulfilling my destiny, basically. So I applied to work actually at a hospital, which was a total turn. I've been in a facility, but I've never been like in the healthcare facility where I was hands on with the patient so much.
Yeah.
And I actually went into a role where I was. And this position actually was perfect for what God aligned me to do because it was talking to family members, encouraging them during the time that their family is in procedure, letting them know what's going on, talking to the doctors and the nurses and making sure that what I transfer from them is not a harsh emotion of what's going on back in the surgery. So I still do that now. I
Wow.
love it. I love it. I mean, it's like the best job that I ever had. And to have a job and do those things is just phenomenal.
Wow. Wow. It's amazing how God shifts us, and like you said, aligns us and puts us in the places where we need to be. And sometimes we see the shifts coming and sometimes we don't. Sometimes they come out of nowhere, like it did in your situation. And, I think sometimes God leaves us in certain places for reasons, that maybe we don't understand in the moment, but we understand in hindsight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I understand it now. I do I do understand it now. And for the first time in my life, I actually like what I do. I'm at peace with what I do. I'm not stressed out because I gotta hit numbers or I gotta make sure that I'm cutting this or doing that. I can go to work, do my job, and come home, and I'm not bringing it home with me.
That's a wonderful feeling.
It is. It is. And I have
So,
time for my own business at that. So.
okay, yeah, that's exactly where I was about to transition into because I'm like, okay, so I'm following the journey. And I'm like, okay, so at what point did say, okay, let me let me pivot and let me start to try to do my own thing? And what did that journey look like for you?
So in 2021, I decided to go ahead and write the book in its entirety.
Wow, okay.
Um, I went in and I edited and I tweaked it, and I called up one of my friends who is phenomenal with words and making sure that everything. She's almost a perfectionist. So I was like, I know if she read over this and she goes over it, it's gonna be done with a fine tooth comb. So I let her go over it. I let her read it, and she was like, "Oh, this is good. This is good." And I was like, "I just want you to read it, and I'm not gonna do anything with it." But she was like, "No, you need to put this out there. People need to, they need to hear this. They need to know that this is something that they can go through." And I was like, "I ain't ready. I'm not ready." So actually, the following year, I did go ahead and I published the book. The book is called Leaps of Faith: Overcoming My Fears. My story of overcoming fears. And it's kind of like airing your dirty laundry, all the things that I feared over my life are in this book. So it was kind of like, I don't have anything to hide anymore. So I might as well just go with the flow of everything. And I published it, and people actually started to purchase the book and ask about the book. And I created a journal to go along with the book so that they can have extra space to write their growth and their journey. So I was like, okay, I'm content. I put my dirty laundry out there. I'm helping people with their journey, because they got a journal. They can help themselves. They can put their information out there. And I was like, okay, I got this. And next thing I know, people were saying, well, I got a story to tell, and I don't know how to put it in place. And I was like, you just write. And that's what I was telling them. You just write, just write down how you feel, write down what you went through. And they would come back and be like, well, can you check this to make sure that it sounds right? Do you think I can publish this? Do you think I can do? And I was like, look, I'm just trying to help you put your emotions on paper. That's not what I'm here for. So I didn't even think that it was meant for me to do.
Mm.
And God said different. So I'm an author mentor. That's what I actually do in my business. And I wanted somewhere where they didn't have to go through all the trials and tribulations that I went through with my publishing journey, because you had to go over here for an editor and over here for a publisher, and you had to go around the corner for somebody to do your book cover. But I was like, if I'm gonna help somebody, I want them to be able to come to me. I can help you write your book. I can help you publish your book. I can help you launch your book. So
Wow.
that's kind of where I am now, and that's what my business is. I have basically a one-stop shop publishing and consulting company.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. And even further painted to purpose. So for the listeners and viewers, I want to just kind of reiterate the timeline, right? Let me go back through my notes. And of course, correct me if I get anything wrong. Okay. Um, so you had your accident in 2011.
Right.
And had to go on bed rest for 7 months and just deal with all the emotional, turmoil and physical, health rehabilitation that comes from that. Then on down the line in 2016, your mom passed away.
Right.
Which sent you into a deeper depression. And you kind of started self-medicating, with alcohol and, describe yourself as a functioning alcoholic. And then in 2019, um, you hit your breaking point, and that's when you said, okay, let me start building this place for women, but definitely for yourself to
Right.
express yourself and to just give a voice to things going on in you and other women's head.
Right.
And then you wrote your book in 2021,
I,
and you published it in 2022.
yes.
And I also heard you mention that your father passed away last year, so that was in 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So like I feel like that timeline is so important, for everyone who's listening, because going from 2011, right, to even
Right.
2019 when you started your group, that's 8 years roughly, right? And
Right.
going from 2011 to 2021 is 10 years,
10
right?
years.
So, and I make this point because when we think about change as humans, we desire for change to happen like that.
And it
But
don't.
but the unfortunate reality is that it happens way different than what we're expecting, and we don't generally get these moments to reflect on it, or to even think about it like that until we're looking in hindsight, right?
Exactly.
You weren't
Right.
in the moment like, oh my gosh, just a few more years and I know things will change. In the moment, things feel like they're not going to change. You feel stuck. You feel like you're just in that place, and it's hard to see the light, and it's hard to see how on earth I'm going to get out of this. And
Yes.
that is why it's so important, you know, to have a place where women can hear other women's stories, because there's going to be listeners and viewers that are right smack dab in the middle of theirs,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know? So, man, that was ah, such a transformational story. And I'm super glad that you're in a place of reflection. And I feel like when you decided to start writing your book, it started with the group, and then the book was like a proliferation of that healing. You're like, oh my gosh, I've done a little bit of work, but that book I feel like was part of a valid part of your healing process.
It was definitely a big part. You know, when you're writing your story, you're reliving everything that you went through, everything that you're dealing with. So it's almost like you say, in your hindsight, you're seeing everything that was wrong. And now you're on the upside of coming out of it. You might still need help. You might still need to talk to somebody. You might still need, somebody to guide you and lead you in the direction mentally. So when I said I have a one-stop shop, I actually um, went to be a life coach. I'm a certified life coach, so that the women that I am helping with their traumas, I can help them um, emotionally get through what they're going through, and it's not just because of what I went through. I wanted to have something on paper that says I have the right to try to help you. And it's still women that I can help you with any, everything that you're going through. So I still refer people to, mental health um, workers if they need that. I refer them to whatever they need. Sometimes they need more counseling. Sometimes they need, to talk to somebody that's a trauma specialist. And I'm still learning and working, but I know that If this is not for me, I'm not going to put myself in position to say, hey, I can help you with all of this when I can't. And that's why you have people on your team, per se. And they're not really on my team, but I have connected with so many women
Yeah.
that can help the women that I'm working with the things that I can't help them with. So never think that you can help somebody with everything, because God always have somebody else that is better qualified to do that job. And
Yep.
you have to know that you can release this and still help that person. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be you that does everything.
Man, you are right. You right. We can't, one person can't be everything to someone. It's just,
Exactly.
it's impossible. I'll say it like that. And it's exhausting, you know. So the same being said for our own selves. We can't be everything we need for ourselves. That's why it takes a community. That's why it takes God. It takes friends, family. It takes so many people. And
Yeah.
when you try to do this journey alone, you get tired, you get weary, you get
And you will
discouraged.
you will fail. You will
Yes,
fail.
yes.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like one of the big themes from just, our episode today is the theme of connection and community.
Right.
And I think back to just you kind of sharing, about your accident and how, in 2011, your life changed, you know, on one random day. And all of a sudden you went into, having to be on bed rest and how it wore on you emotionally. And you had people around you, but you still felt alone, right? You still didn't have a way to express yourself. And um, I feel like if you would have had, you know, a community, right, where you could be vulnerable. It's not easy for us to be vulnerable around the same people that we have to put this, strong front up for, right? With your
Yeah.
kids, with your family, with your spouse, or, what have you. They're used to seeing us in certain ways. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I shift, they're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Let me help you. What can I do? They don't understand that it's because of things that you're going through. And so being around a community of women that can understand you through these different life transitions, having the connections, just as Lacole was talking about, building your network and your community of people around you is so important.
Yes. Very important.
Yeah. And so, you know, Lacole, I definitely want to give you um a moment to tell a little bit about and give some calls to action. Like, tell us where we can find your book, tell us about your website, um, tell us how to get in contact with you.
Okay, so my website is lacolesmith.com, and you can pretty much find everything there. You can sign up for my show. I have a show as well. You can sign up for the show. You can be on the show. You can come and tell your story. I love to talk to authors and entrepreneurs, so they can sign up there. Um, if you need somebody to help you through getting your book out there, you can find that on my website as well. I do ghostwriting. If you're not the person that says, hey, I can't write it, but this is what it is, you can give me all of your information and I can write that book for you. And they'll never know that I did it because everything goes in your name. You are still going to be the author. You just didn't put the words on the paper. And I do that. I have other services that where you can do a one-on-one mentorship with me. And that looks like me and you every week, one-on-one, making sure that I'm holding you accountable, making sure that you're doing everything that you need for to get this book out there. And once it's published, I'm not gone. I'm still right there with you because we got to launch the book. We got to get your story out there. And the only way you're going to get your story out there is getting on podcasts like this platform right here. So it's a process, but I'm there for everything, and everything can be found on my website. You can also find my book on Amazon. Um, I'm working on getting it on Audible as well, so that's in the process. And I have 2 books coming out this month actually. So it's a lot that's going on. If you want to keep up with me, I have 2 communities on Facebook. One is Storytelling Unleashed, and that's my community for people that want to be authors. I kind of put tips in there. You kind of can see my author side. That's my author side of everything. My motivational talk dialogue show is where I interview. And if you want to just keep up with my business side, then you'll go to my page, author Lacole Smith, and all of these are on Facebook. I am on Instagram. I'm being pushed to be on TikTok and other platforms as well, and YouTube. So that is coming in the future as well. But to keep up with everything, author Lacole Smith page, and you can see where I'm going, what I'm doing. I'll be in Texas next weekend. I'm doing the art of telling your business story. So I'm going to start showing people how to take the business that they have and teach people how to do what they're doing and be successful with it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I love it. And I'm going to include all these links in the podcast episode description so y'all can find them below and easily click through to connect with Lacole. And before we end today's episode, I most definitely want to reach out and just encourage any of the women listening. If find yourself in a space similar to Lacole, or you find yourself in a place where you know that you need community, where you know that finding connection to like-minded women, and finding that place of encouragement is important. I want you to check out the Fynergy membership. And so the Fynergy membership is my community for women just to connect. We have live virtual events. We do a sister circle call every week. We do Bible study. We have an entrepreneur support call. We do book clubs. We do monthly challenges. We have women in there that need you. We have the Fynergy Grow Library, which is a community with podcasts, blog posts, videos, downloadable ebooks, kind of at your own pace, so you can grow in different areas, of financial growth, spiritual growth, emotional growth, career, entrepreneurial, success. Then finally, we have our own kind of version of our Facebook group, but not so Facebooky, where we connect with each other. We make encouraging posts, we ask questions, and we have, conversations just around anything related to women. And so right now, the Fynergy membership is $4.99 a month. And it comes with a 30-day free trial. And so I'm going to include that link below. And so hopefully from this episode, if you are listening or you have been watching, wherever you are in your journey, you have some avenues, you've learned of some resources today that can help you from being stuck to getting unstuck. Whether you go with me or you go with Lacole or you do both, it doesn't matter. But, hopefully the message here is that you seek some help.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I want to give Lacole the floor to close out with anything that she wants to share before we end today's episode.
Okay, the last thing I have 2 things that I would like to say. So if you are interested in my services, you can use code SMLacole and you'll get 10% off of anything that's on my website. So that's SMLacole, and let me know once you go on there that you heard it from the Fynergy um, podcast. I want to know where it came from. I want to know where you saw me at, where you learned me at, and I want to encourage anybody that's out there. Please connect with somebody. This platform is wonderful. Um, I am loving the energy from Ms. Williams. I am loving the things that she's doing. She's helping many people connect with somebody, like she said. It might be her, it might be me, it might be somebody else, but make sure that you're doing something that's positive to make your life a whole lot better. And that's all that I have.
Amen. Amen. I thank you so much for being on the episode today. I really enjoyed hearing your story. I thank you for being vulnerable and, coming on my platform and expressing and coming on with the purpose of encouragement and motivation for other women. So, y'all comment below, let us know what you think of today's episode, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Have a good one, y'all. Thank you for having me.